Okay, so good morning. We are here for another Connect and Share on a Friday morning. Every Friday morning, I should say, not every morning. Every Friday morning at 10 a.m. we get together and have various conversations around the traps on the outdoor industry. And I am Laurie Mode. I am the CEO of Outdoors New South Wales and ACT, who presents this to you every week. But first, may I recognise the traditional owners of the lands in which we all meet today. I come to you here from Guringai and Darug country, and here we say Warrami, and that is welcome, and you are very pleased to be in our presence. But I wish to acknowledge those that have traversed the land long time before us. I love this image. I actually took this image last week when I managed to get out into far west, outback New South Wales for work. And I think this is a great little image to sort of say there has been so many people that have tread before us, thousands and thousands of years before us, and have learned more about the land. And we hope that we can live and understand their connection to the land and bring that to our activities and to our participants that are with us every time we go out into the outdoors. So again, we want to talk just on the floods. We discussed this last week, but obviously my thoughts are with those that are still struggling in the cleanup and also getting back to some, well, normal's not a thing these days, but back to some sort of ability to return to their home. And if you're talking to anyone that's affected, please point out these programs that are now available for flood victims. And also there is now a link, the newsouthwales.gov.au/floods, which is a great place to go for all of that content surrounding flood support and anything that people may need. The big news of the week is that ACT camps are back. So our ACT schools have now been given the ability to go back to their camp, back to their outdoor education programs, and they can travel up to 4 hours outside of Canberra. So great news for getting our kids back into this. It was so important. We advocated very hard for this, and a big thank you to the ACT Education Directorate, who had to have the hard conversations with the ACT Health, but also to Nicole Lauder, who is in the ACT Legislative Assembly, who also believed that we needed to get our kids back out into outdoor education and advocated on our behalf as well. So thank you to everyone who was part of that. Really pleased to see that changed on the website yesterday, and all full steam ahead in relation to ACT. The AOK program, the Active Outdoor Kids program, is going well. Our first one, you might remember, is in Portland, New South Wales, near Oberon, and that is going into its third week. So we're seeing some great engagement, some increase of participation. We're having at least 2 or 3 added every week to the program. So that then sets forth the Port Macquarie program, which will commence next term. Following that, we'll have Singleton closely behind, and then the other 9 regions will start to roll out. So if you are a provider in regional New South Wales and you want to get involved in the Active Outdoor Kids program, please reach out to us. You can email Helen on programs@outdoorsnswact.com.au. The mentoring program is also going very well, and we had our second session with the beautiful Claire Dallett, and talking about the risk appetite that we have to have in the outdoor industry. It was a great conversation, triggered some certain thoughts and processes that we need to consider as outdoor providers, but certainly the feedback was amazing, and we look forward to next week's session, which we get down into more about the AAAS with our mentors and mentees. Again, this program is courtesy of the Small Business Month program, and we wish to thank them for their support in this important program, and also Paddy Palin, who came to the table and recognised the importance of these types of things. So thank you to both of them, and we'll look forward to bringing you more updates on the mentoring program. And then the final one there is the ACT government has actually put out an export masterclass. So if you have a product that you think you could invite international visitation to, and you want to look at that export market, there is a great workshop that is free, and that's on the 5th of April. So make sure you look into the ACT government website. You'll see that opportunity and take advantage of that offer. The pending opportunity which we keep talking about, it is coming, and I can tell you that because I have been working with the ACT Education Department and Service New South Wales on the criteria and the process for this grant. So at the moment it's a $14 million pool, and it will go to everyone that could not participate in their activities in term 4 because of the directorate or the education policy around no activity. So keep an eye out for that. We will get it to you as soon as it's publicly accessible. So watch your emails, and certainly all members will be the first people to get access to applying. Another great process that's been happening behind the scenes, you might know of Hugh Sutherland, who is not only our Young Achiever of the Year in tourism, but he is also very passionate about looking at some of the challenges of the pay and working conditions in the outdoor industry to improve it and educate operators and employees of some of the areas. He's put this survey together, the survey closed, and now the data is available for you to look at. Hugh will attend a Connect and Share very soon and give you a little bit more in-depth into it, but the content that you see on screen now is available on our website. So if you go to our homepage, which is outdoorsnsw.act.org, you can download this PDF and have a look yourself at what was said about pay and working conditions in the outdoors. We had a fabulous day on Wednesday. Our Outdoors New South Wales ACT board got together face to face. Who could have thought that could happen? And we looked at all of the aspects around where we sit right now, some of the challenges, some of the opportunities, and we took a review of our strategic plan. And like any good organisation, we did review it, and we have changed it slightly. We knew that it needed a bit of a refresh. So I look forward to updating you on that process and that progress. But I will say that I am pleased to deliver to you a bit of a revised vision, which is not too distant from where we were, but it still is about a community that connects with the outdoors to lead to healthy, more fulfilled and well-balanced lives. So we still have that vision strong in everything that we do. And that rings through the programs that we bring to you. But our mission is to lead a thriving and sustainable outdoor industry, because it's you guys that connects people with the outdoors to build that health and well-being. So yes, we hope to continue to do that. But I think it really does say what we are here to do. So our Connect and Shares for the next couple of weeks have got some great content. The first one, and that's obviously today, is visas and staffing. And I'll go into a little bit of content in a minute before we lead into a discussion. But the second one, on the 25th, we have invited Home Affairs to see if they can respond to some of our content around visas. I'm yet to confirm that, but certainly that's the aim for next week. I will be coming to you live from the Parks and Leisure New South Wales event, where we'll bring that content to you. And on the 1st of April, we have the amazing Reconciliation Australia coming along, and they're going to talk to us about reconciliation action plans and what we've got to consider if we are looking at as doing our own action plan. So that should be a great conversation. And we also have a Mountain Safety Collective announcement, which I won't give you too much insight into, but you'll have to wait till the 1st of April for that one. And just a quick reminder, on the 1st of April at 9 a.m. that morning, we have a special presentation from the Australian business lawyers around the recent case law on contractors versus employees. This is a very important piece of information for anyone that looks at contractors. So I urge you to have a look at the website. It is a cost to attend that, but certainly I think the value of what we'll get, as we know, lawyers don't come cheap these days, but if the value of what we get from that session will be well worth your time and effort. Remember, members do get their discount too. So go back to the email that was sent 2 weeks ago with that code. If you haven't got it, email me and I'll send it through to you. But you do get a $10 discount off that ticket if you are a member of Outdoors New South Wales and ACT. And just on Connect and Shares, please remember that there's no Connect and Share on Good Friday. As much as I'd love to be with you on that day, I don't think our turn up would be great. So we're going to hold it off for that day and return the following Friday. So now into staffing and the overall aspect of visas and how do we tap into potential working holiday visa staff. So yesterday we heard that our New South Wales unemployment rate is the lowest on record. Incredibly disheartening in a way, because we have so many jobs out there that need to be filled. And if I can use our work in the outdoors platforms as an example, we are seeing more and more reach and engagement with those profiles. As you can see there, we only started the Facebook page in, I think it was August, and since then we've had 43,000 engagements on that site. Our Facebook reach in the last 3 weeks has been 7,000 people. So there is a lot of interaction in the site, but we're not filling the roles. And I lost count at how many roles we actually have put up on there. In the last week, I know there's been 12. So, and I'm certainly no test case of how much is actually out there. So no doubt that it is an issue. The other issue we've got to combat with our staffing is getting qualified, competent staff into our programs. Our demand is growing. People are wanting to be outdoors a lot more. Our schools are wanting to play catch up. So we've got to be very conscious that we can't have the capacity to meet the current demand as well. So it's a bit of a tug and pull exercise. Now, Adrian, I don't know how you do what you do. I looked at these visa categories and I just went, oh my Lord, there is just a lot of different opportunities out there as far as visas and where do you fit, what category, what subclass do you apply for? And this just gives you a bit of a snapshot of what I've seen. Have you got a comment on that one, Adrian?
Sorry, look, I just got a phone call. I've just got to answer. Sorry, I won't be a sec.
So I think, you know, when we're trying to look at the opportunities now, there's been a lot of conversation with the politicians and government around trying to reduce whether it be red tape or access to visa holders. This has come off the a couple of media releases, and they're looking at that temporary visa setting. So firstly, they say, you know, current and former skilled recognised graduate visa holders can remain now. They haven't got a limit until April 24, that is. And then student visa holders can work additional hours in critical sectors. Now, this is where I've been working with Tim to sort of say, how do we get us recognised as a critical sector, knowing that we have probably a shortfall right now of around 25,000 jobs. So we've got to make sure that, you know, we are seen as one of those critical sectors. The pandemic event visa is now free for 12 months, but I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Adrian and Tim, that might have had a cutoff date, which we've now surpassed. And then no limit on the length of time working holiday makers can work for the same employer. So no longer have they got to keep changing their employment. So that's sort of what I have found out in the market. But today is a conversation with those in the know. And certainly, Adrian, as Visa Logic, you've been with us before, and thank you for returning again today. Tell us, what's your current feel on what's happening in this area right now?
Well, I think in general, the situation, in my experience at the moment, is pretty bad for most employers. To be honest with you, that there is a shortage, as you probably realise yourselves, a shortage of workers. I have clients in the hospitality sector, in the agricultural sector and various others, and they're all doing it very tough because
Mhm.
they need workers, and the fact that we're sort of coming out of the COVID situation theoretically, and we're opening the borders. The borders were opened on the 22nd of February. Um, is a good thing, but this kind of migration program hasn't really caught up with that in the sense that the migration numbers are still the same.
Mm.
Now, I'm hoping, and I've heard some sort of whispers that there's going to be an increase in the migration numbers in the budget, the federal budget coming up
Mhm.
in May.
Mhm.
Now, to what extent that is going to help the situation, or whether it's going to be minor or major, I don't know. Nobody knows, but that's something to keep an eye out.
Mhm.
But for the programs that you outlined, Laurie, the working holiday extensions and the various other concessions for COVID,
Mm.
they are good, but they're I guess they're sort of on the margins for a lot of employers. They don't really address the major issues.
Yeah.
One of the major issues, as far as I'm concerned, is the length of time that the processing is currently taking.
Right.
Whereas, so a lot of employers have to wait a long time
Mm.
if they've got a client over a potential employee overseas. They've got to wait a long time for that employee to come on board.
Mm.
But certainly, I know it depends on the situation that the employer finds themselves in. A working holiday program is a good program, particularly as they've sort of relaxed the restrictions on working for one employer.
Mm. Mm.
But it depends if if you want an employee who's going to stay with you for a long period of time. That maybe isn't the solution coming out of COVID, because they're not going to keep that. Uh, they're not going to keep that lack of restriction
Yeah.
forever. I think
Yeah.
it's going to, yeah, eventually.
Mm.
Um, so a lot of these, for individuals, because of the problems that they have, a lot of people are going into the state-sponsored independent skilled area, and Tim could probably talk about this, and
Mm.
that creates this whole new set of problems um, as well, because of the
Mm.
lack of the numbers. Basically, it comes down to a numbers exercise.
Mm.
Um, so there are sometimes, I know it's a cliche, but thinking outside the box or the square, there are other options um, for very specific circumstances, like labour agreements for companies, the Global Talent Program, which is a program governments put lots and lots of resources into. The turnaround is 3 weeks to
Wow.
get your visa, a permanent visa, but you have to have a really specialised skill in sectors that they've highlighted. So it's a very kind of specific program, but it's something to consider if depending on your circumstances.
So, Adrian,
So
that's something that is our sector identified in that, and if not, is there an aligning sector, or how can, I suppose, myself advocate for that inclusion in that area?
well, the sectors, there might be some overlapping, but not. There's one sector I was looking at, infrastructure and tourism,
Mm-hmm.
but the emphasis there is on actual infrastructure. So actual, you know, regional development,
Yep.
tourism infrastructure in buildings, and I guess other infrastructure. There's
Okay.
education, um,
Okay.
but these are very, if you look at them in detail, they're pretty specialised. Digitech, recycling, energy, resources, agri-food and ag tech. So they're
Mm.
very, very, very specialised, and I'd have to obviously, you'd have to look at each individual case to be able
Mm.
to
And I should just add that there's a threshold there's an income threshold that candidates would expect to meet, and that's $160,000 a year.
Oh, right.
Income threshold, yeah.
So
you've either got to have earned that, or you've got to potentially have a job offer which includes that salary.
wow, okay.
Not easy.
No.
Qualified.
So Tim, I'll ask you this question: is there a way that we might be able to advocate for an inclusion in this program, but looking at an alternate threshold? What do you think your chances are there?
I would say low.
Right.
The chances are low.
Right.
And it's that figure goes up every year, whereas the TSS visa income threshold has remained the same, if I'm not mistaken, for the last few years, Adrian.
That's right.
So clearly, I guess what that indicates is there's an appetite for this particular visa category to be only available to the very sort of senior roles.
Right.
Whereas the broader kind of employer-sponsored visas are available to a broader range of entry-level roles. It'll be interesting to see in the budget whether that minimum salary threshold for the TSS visa is increased, actually.
And the TSS stands for again?
Temporary shortage visa. That's the 482.
The 482, right. Minimum. Yeah, okay. All right, so, all right. Sorry, I just interrupted you on that, but yeah, keep going.
I should also add, sorry, the labour agreement sort of, I suppose, visa option is also linked to the 482 or the permanent visas, the 186 and 187. So it's a kind of subset of the TSS or 482 program.
Right.
You know, I think that's a really good point, Adrian. I think that a labour agreement is something we should probably, or Laurie, you could explore.
Yeah.
And can it be, Adrian, can it be kind of applied to industries? I mean, when I worked at New South Wales Health, we applied for one and were successful in getting one, but it was for health employees employed by the New South Wales public sector. Can you sort of apply for a blanket kind of approach to cover tourism, for example, or outdoor education?
Well, I kind of went through this in the last one, but yeah, there are different kinds of labour agreements. And I guess I should go back one step and just emphasise that the point about a labour agreement that is might be attractive to employers is that you could nominate a position that isn't on the standard skills list. So if you have a position that isn't on the standard 482 skill list, you can still nominate it. So, for example, I have a client who's a big agricultural grain producer in Walgett, and they nominated a truck driver, which in normal circumstances would not be available because it's considered lower skilled than for the normal TSS. So, yeah, but there are different kinds of labour agreements. So there's industry-specific labour agreements, and there are area-specific. So, for example, the one I was just talking about in Walgett, that is an area-specific one, and that was arranged through the Arana LD Arana. And
it was is it the Regional Development Association?
Yeah,
RDA. Yeah.
RDA, yep.
All these acronyms you get.
Yes.
We're good at those.
So yeah, that was not a industry specific one. That was a area specific. But so, for example, the you wouldn't be available. I don't think most of your members wouldn't be available for an industry specific, because the industries are dairy, fishing, meat, ministers of religion. I don't understand that one. On hire, pork, premium restaurants, advertising, and horticulture. So I don't think your members would qualify for those.
Mm.
So you'd have to get some other kind of labour agreement.
Mm.
There's projects, but mainly the designated area. So you'd have to be in one of the designated areas. The only one in New South Wales is Arana.
Right.
So Arana is Western New South Wales, basically.
Mm. Obviously, being who we are, if something doesn't fit, I want to advocate for that change. how, and Tim, this is probably a question for you on the industry specific area. How do we get the outdoor industry recognised in that, or do we look at? I mean, area specific. We're regional mostly. Most of our jobs are in regional areas. So I can't pinpoint a particular area other than say regional New South Wales and regional ACT. Do you think there's an option there to advocate for that inclusion?
I think so. So when I went through the process at Health, yeah, it's a lengthy process.
Mm-hmm.
I presume it still is, but we could certainly, as an industry, put in an application for recognition for a labour agreement to cover the entire industry, and then it's sort of a two-step process, Adrian, I think. So you get this kind of overarching labour agreement approved for the industry, and then, as Adrian said, individual employers nominate individual specific occupations. But because it's under a labour agreement, you've got much more flexibility in terms of which occupations you can nominate, and the truck driver in Woolgate was a great example. And you can also, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Adrian, but you can also kind of nominate positions that you want to try and sponsor on a permanent basis as well as just a temporary basis.
That's right. The 186 visa is, or the 187. Yeah, they're the permanent versions. Yeah.
Great. So that can still be done. So you can actually kind of shortcut that process a little bit as well. And again, I think it gives you a bit more flexibility. So yeah, look, you'd have to kind of gird yourself for the process of the application process.
Okay.
But I don't see any kind of impediment to going through that process.
Awesome. Okay. All right, I'm ready. Let's go. We've got to try to do something. This is, it's getting ridiculous. Yeah.
I really think that's a very good option. And I think, I mean, I don't know for sure, but just generally, I think they're quite willing. There seems to be a willingness to accept submissions that are made, and on behalf of industry. So I think it's really worth trying.
Brilliant. Okay, great. So, okay, that aside now, Adrian, is there anything that you think we need to look at, like if people are in the process right now with the temporary visas or the working holiday visas, is there anything that you wanted to highlight as people need to know about?
Well, I just think if you're in the process of applying for working holiday, maybe not, but TSS visas or any other sort of employer-sponsored or independent visas, the big problem you're going to have at the moment is the waiting times. So, everybody's aware of it. I just hope there's something that's going to be actually done about it in the near future, now that we're supposedly coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, if you're in Australia already, obviously you'll get a bridging visa while it's being processed, but it's the people who are overseas and the employers are waiting for them to get here where the real problems arise.
I've had a few of our members contact me and say that they've gone through the process, they've found some great applicants, they've submitted their visas and they've been denied because they refer back to the company to say you haven't advertised these positions locally in Australia, yet they have, and they have had no response, hence they've gone down this path. Have you got any response to that?
Well, the requirements for labour market testing, I think that's what you're referring to, are very, very specific.
Right.
And it's one of those things, they're not all the policy is like this, all the regulations even, but it's one of those things that's black and white as far as the department's concerned. You either meet it or you don't.
Right.
And there's a lot of grey areas, but that's not one of them, unfortunately. So there might have been some kind of minor error, minor technicality with the paper. I don't know. I obviously can't comment specifics, but all I can say is that the labour market testing is really onerous and very, very black and white. I've been lucky in the past 15 years or so. I have a lot of Japanese clients. In fact, the majority were Japanese, and they don't have to do labour market testing. There's some countries that are exempt because of international trade agreements. They were one of them. So it was such a relief not to have to do that labour market testing. And everything is, it's just got more and more difficult, more and more strenuous. So the best advice I could give is just to make sure you cover every single aspect of it.
Can I just jump in there? So I'm hearing, I'd be keen for your feedback on businesses that have conducted labour market testing, but the department is saying that the applicants that they have had for those advertisements, they should have offered the position to those applicants, even though they're not experienced or even skilled enough in the employer's view. So then they're stuck with the department saying, well, yes, you've done the advertisements, but you've had numerous applicants that we think are suitable for the job. And the employer saying, yes, I've had these applications, but none of them fit the criteria. And now they're in this impasse. Well, what do you suggest there?
Sorry, Laura, is that what actually happened? Sorry, I must have misunderstood. Is that specifically what happened?
Yeah, that is, and apologies, I should have given you a bit more context, but that's exactly what's happened, because I mean, in our current situation, and Helen, you might be able to provide a bit more context, but we've got this huge demand that's happening, and we have a lack of qualified people that are coming through the ranks in Australia. In England and in the US, you know, to speak of two areas, our maturity as an industry is not at that standard. So the qualification level in both of those areas, as an example, are way beyond what we have in this country. So to actually say we need a Cert 4 in outdoor leadership, or we need, you know, certificate of attainment in abseiling, canyoning, and caving, then we can't find them. They just don't exist in Australia. So, Helen, did you want to comment on that? Is there something that you can add to that, because you're experiencing this for real?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest issues in our industry at the moment is that the only category of visa we can apply for longer term is under a recreation officer. The recreation officer is on the short, like critical needs list, a skills shortage for most states and territory, not all of them. However, it is only on the short-term list. So the 482 visa, which is probably the easiest visa for any employers to sponsor an employee onto, we can only get sponsored as a short-term TSS visa, which does not make us eligible for permanent residency. it also does not make us eligible for pathways to permanent residency. So at this point, I've been working full-time for 5 years in Australia for Outward Bound. I'm the head of operations, and I have got no permanency whatsoever.
And
the only pathway,
yeah, that's right. You've come with those qualifications that we're looking for in those roles. We cannot replace a Helen at the moment because we're not seeing people come through the ranks with her skill and her qualifications. So not only are we trying to keep the people we've got, but we're trying to also fulfill the roles that we currently have. And that's exactly what Tim was saying. These guys went out, they asked for applicants, they got everyone from people trying to leave Woolies and whatever, but no one from Australia had the qualifications or skills or criteria they were looking for. They found them in overseas, they submitted their applications and they were denied.
So Laurie, why were they denied? What was the reason?
And that's to your point. They said the labour market testing wasn't conducted to their satisfaction.
Do you know
Tim?
any specific reason, though, in terms of the labour market testing?
Tim, did you want to comment on that? Because I know you.
Well, yeah, my understanding was just that they felt that there were suitable applicants, and that the government effectively is trying to make some sort of employment decision for a private business in deciding. I agree with you. It's crazy.
I've seen that before. It's amazing.
It's
so,
right.
So there is sort of but there is. I mean, I can understand that occurring in other instances, or I can envisage that occurring in other instances, because there is that tension. In labour market testing, it's not just about putting an advert on Seek or whatever. But if you're getting responses to the adverts, what is there is some tension between who gets to determine who fills that job, and whether if you're advertising it and the government is saying, well, it's not a genuine effort to recruit, and you're not actually interested in employing any of the applicants for whatever reason, then we don't feel that you've met the criteria, and it's our view that you should have recruited that person. There's, I'm surprised there haven't been more instances of that. And I don't know how it's ever going to get resolved, because, as I said, effectively, you've got the government trying to make an employment decision for a private business. It would be easy if it was like a regulated industry where you were required to have minimum qualifications. It's sort of black and white, right? So school teachers, nurses, etc., it's very black and white. You've either you meet the minimum requirements for registration or you don't. But again, even in those instances, let's say it's a school that's advertising, and a teacher who is qualified and experienced applies for it, but the school, it's not a good fit, or they're coming from another school and let's say it's just not a good fit, and the school decides not to employ that person, would they then get turned down for sponsoring somebody from overseas? Don't know. It's an interesting quandary, and I don't know how we can resolve it.
Sorry, Dave, you had a comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's interesting because 20 years ago, I was sitting around a table with the OEG and Outward Bound and all the others, and talking about let's have a national industry and let's sort out our employment problems, and not specifically this area, but all the various areas, and pay people properly and everything, which we didn't do. So we've had a huge number of people leave the industry because basically we didn't look after them. And that's people leaving as operators, people leaving as senior and junior. I don't think there is a quick fix now. I think we've got to try and do some fixes. I think we need to start that conversation, which I guess we have, and fix the industry for the next disaster. Until we have a good national body, and we consider to be an industry, we consider to be professionals, around qualifications, competency, experience and everything, then we can I think go to governments and and honestly say, hey, we need this. And we will be able to provide the statistics and the information to let them make decent decisions. At the moment, they have no information. We have no information in most cases. So I think what we've got to do is say, okay, try and fix now, but let's actually continue with that national discussion and say, okay, let's get our act together over the next. It'll take us 5 to 10 years to get ourselves in a position where we can be able to solve this problem the next time it happens.
Yeah. It's totally agree with you, Dave. I think this has been a discussion since I started in the industry, just around, everything we're doing now is working for long-term aim and long-term goals. Needless to say, we have to do something now, because we're not going to have an industry very soon if we don't solve this challenge. And I take I'm trying to get through to affairs at the moment to say, 1, we need to be a priority. 2, can you please respond to these knockbacks and these denied visas? On what basis, considering exactly what Tim said? How can they make the decision for our employment and our needs as a business? Still haven't got there, but certainly I've got a lot of support from federal local members that are pushing the agenda for us, and I've got amazing support of Business New South Wales and Tim in trying to continue that advocacy. But I think if we can revert to the now, what do businesses do now? Any ideas, guys, or how can they start doing something to get people into their workforce?
Well, one of the things I've done, I'm tiny, but I've actually for the first time ever taken some trainees, which I'm building up for my own business. It costs me, I'm paying them money, so it costs me extra because they can't be in the ratios. But I'm planning for next year so that I've got some of these people able to do some of my activities for next green season. So I've invested, I've invested $20,000 in my own little training. Not trying to do it through a TAFE. I'm waiting for someone else. I'm training them in-house, but I'm paying them as I'm training them, a couple $100 a day. But that's only one little tiny solution, but it fixes one of my problems.
And you're looking at medium-term goals as well, at the end of the day.
And I'm looking at specific activities. In this case, I'm looking in particular at caving, which it's very hard to get leaders for. So I've got someone that it takes me time to train a caving leader, but I've had all season, and I will be able to use them as assistant leaders for the start of next caving season and as leaders by the end of next caving season, because you've got to have 2 leaders in caving. But they've both got to be leaders. They can't be someone that isn't experienced,
absolutely. So I was just about to ask Tim a quick question. Now it's just gone out of my head because my head went in another direction, as it does. Any other comment from anyone at the moment on this? I just remembered, Tim, with the apprenticeships guys that came and presented, which you helped me connect with. Has there been much feedback on where the apprenticeships are up to right now? And do we look like that funding continuing? Do you know?
Are you talking about the Apprentice Commencement Subsidy, the employer subsidy?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the moment it is due to finish on the 31st of March.
Right.
But we're hearing quite a lot that in the budget 2 days earlier, there will be an extension. In saying that, it won't be that close to the level of subsidy that is currently available. So if your members or any business is interested in taking on an apprentice or a trainee, now is probably as good as it is ever going to get, with a 50% wage subsidy for the first 12 months, plus another 10% in the second year if they go into a second year. So really encourage businesses to if they're on the fence, to look at it now in the next just under 2 weeks.
Yep.
But yes, there is going to be, I would imagine, something in the budget. And look, we're hoping for 30%, but it might be 20 is what I'm hearing. So yeah, it's not going to be kind of anywhere near what's available right now.
Yeah, okay. It's a really good point. So yeah, we should be doing a push with our members to say, if you're thinking about it, jump in before the 31st of March.
Yeah, and look, just to be aware, the Apprentice network providers, of which Business New South Wales is one, they're going to be really under pressure at the moment, because they are already seeing quite a big influx of applications. So really encourage people to put it in next week at the latest, if at all possible, rather than leaving it to the sort of the 30th or 31st.
Yeah. No.
I guess one of the issues that we haven't got any insight into is transition, and what the transitional arrangements are going to look like beyond the 31st of March to whatever the new program is.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, if you can, if you're thinking about it, if you've ever considered it, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, great. Now, looking at the time, and I wanted to just do around the house, but Adrian, thank you so much for your time. Did you want to, like, obviously, if guys are thinking about, you know, potentially applying and getting into overseas workers, can they reach out to you? Yeah, what were your last parting words?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I was thinking also about the, yeah, I'd be happy to answer any inquiries from anybody. I might speak to Helen afterwards too.
Great.
But I think the interesting point is the idea that your organisation could lobby for an industry-specific labour agreement.
Yep.
And in order to do that, you've got to show extensive skill shortages, maybe throughout Australia. So that if there's a national body,
Easy.
you could link and maybe make it a national. That'll be a much probably more persuasive case that you could mount. But I think that's really worth investigating.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I'm involved in the national body, so certainly we can advocate on behalf. But yeah, I think that's certainly seems like the avenue we've got to go down next.
Yeah.
Great.
Let me know if you need some help.
Yeah, thank you. We might just be doing that. Thank you so much again for attending, and I think a great conversation. Thank you for also helping Helen out with her situation. I think we're just seeing it right across the board at the moment, so the more we can work together.
Yes,
Tim, sorry, do you want to say something quickly?
I was going to say I might dial off now as well, actually.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for being here.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Thank you. And if there's anything else I can assist with, just drop me a line. Happy for you to share my details.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I might come and pick your brain later about how to get started on this.
Right.
So,
right. Thanks. Nice to meet you.
Yep, thank you. And just a quick welcome to David Maskell. How are you?
Hello, everybody.
What are you guys up to at the moment?
Yeah, I'll give a plug, but I can just tap into the end of the conversation. I'm in the middle of pre-planning -2 before we go out on camp. We don't have staff we need. We're going through a local coefficient. I'll give a plug, and through Camp Lawrence. I have staff in need of 4 instructors and 1 teacher replacement right now for a teacher who's come off with an injury, not COVID for a change. And we can't find staff. We've got 2 confirmed, 1 maybe at the moment, and Coefficient's one of the biggest supplier of HR labour force for the sector, and it's a factor of, and Andrew won't mind me sharing this, people not being vaccinated, people have left the industry and are doing labouring or construction or things that are more consistent, or people are back at uni because that was a choice they made 3 months ago when we were shut out again. And I know last week, actually earlier this week, Camp Lawrence had a program with their own school, and they had to bring in all sorts of extra people from the school just to cover ratios, activities, catering to that extent, because they had a 15 instructor requirement. Couldn't be met. Again, not a reflection on Coefficient or Andrew or Camp Lawrence, who I'm partnering with at the moment for next week's Year 9 camp, but it's across the board in Southeast Queensland, and obviously it's a reflection of a national problem. But on a brighter note, Inside the Outhouse has a big event this week. I know it's a small room. I'll put the links in a second.
Yep, great.
I'll just go back to my other screen so I can see it. Lucinda Martinelli is coming in. She's from Whole Planet Consulting. So she's dialing in at 1 a.m. From the States. She's a freelance consultant who teaches classroom outdoor educators all about facilitation skills in the social and emotional learning space. And she's going to come in and talk about what they are to the Outhouse audience, what facilitation skills are set apart from teaching, training and coaching, and why do educators need them. So, and we'll be discussing the 6 skills every facilitator needs and applying them in the roles that we play in education, business and social justice. So it's going to be an amazing session. Unfortunately, I can't be in there because I'll be shifting bags and driving buses and picking up kids from mountains on Monday afternoon. But Monday afternoon, 4:15 Monday afternoon, this coming Monday in Queensland. If you're anywhere else in the country, so New South Wales, ACT, Victoria, it'll be 5:15. Definitely worth dropping in. Lucinda presents at most of the national and international conferences out of North America. So she's well known over there, and it's a bit of a coup for us to get her to come into our little event. So definitely, if you got the time, jump in. I know there's family time for some people, but it'd be worth watching the recording back afterwards. So
for sure.
But come in, ask us some questions, and Inside the Outhouse Monday. I'll post it into the link here. And I'm sorry, can I ask a question about notice, Laurie? I take it maybe the lawyer presentation fell apart.
No, it's still going ahead. So we've got quite a few tickets, that have been sold, which is great. Phew. So as I sort of did at the beginning of today's session, just a big call out for the event that we've got going around contractors versus employers. We've got Australian business lawyers coming along. As we said, they don't come cheap, but we wanted to make sure we brought this content to you. So that's happening on the 1st of April at 9 a.m. Tickets are on sale now. All Outdoors New South Wales and ACT members get their discount. So certainly plug in and make sure you get your tickets for that. And if you can't make that time, all ticket holders will obviously get the recording as well to watch at their leisure. And can I just say, David, thank you for everything the Inside the Outhouse does, and the recordings as well. Like we do, we always record our sessions, put them up on Facebook, because we know everyone has lives, and we know that they can't make live sessions all the time. But what I love about this industry and what we are seeing is that conversation continuing and being accessible and transparent. And it's those recordings that enable that to happen. So well done to you guys. And I enjoy watching back your sessions, because yes, I've got an agreement with my family that from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock is theirs, and everything else until midnight's mine.
That's a good agreement. We'll definitely plug. You'll probably run another promotion for the lawyer. I'll go back and we will reshare that through our channels as well, and try and get some viewers in from Queensland. Because I think as I've discussed with you offline, it's an important discussion to have, even if it's an expensive one for a Zoom session. But it's completely understandable. I've got to go, but thanks everybody, and I'll watch back the recording from next time.
Sounds great. Thanks, Dave, for joining, and thank you everyone for being here today and for watching it back online as well. Great conversation. We haven't finished this conversation. We need to continue it, but we'll certainly be working in the right direction for some outcomes. So again, thank you to everyone for attending today. Don't forget, we've got happy hour at 4 o'clock today for anyone that wants to join us, or attend next week when we talk more on this topic, but also live from the PLA event. Have a great weekend, everyone, and a great week ahead. We'll talk to you all soon.